Welcome back to my channel. This is Jacqueline Edwards, and I am so glad you're here. If you haven't yet, click the subscribe button so you'll be notified of new videos. So let's jump right in. Today we're going to be talking about a timely topic, and as we continue the conversation of trauma, healing, and transformation, I wanted to really just kind of take a moment and step back and just talk about some of the tools or some of the things I identify that has helped me along the journey. And so today I'm going to be talking about humility, surrender, and vulnerability. Yes, how humility, being able to surrender, and being able to be vulnerable has helped me on my journey. So in Matthew 5, verse 5, Jesus says, "Blessed are the meek, because they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are the ones who are humble. Blessed are the ones who know how to surrender. Blessed are the ones that knows how to be vulnerable." We are called blessed. So let's take a look and see what does that look like. So as we understand trauma, right, and we've been talking about trauma, we do realize that the effects of trauma can stunt our growth. The effects of trauma can stunt our growth. And so we're going to be talking about the effects of trauma, how to recognize area of deficits in our lives, how to have self-compassion, and how to move into that self-development. So, as we're talking about the effects of trauma, I want you to go with me in your imagination and look at the different facets to who you are, right? The different dimensions of the self. And we're going to look at, like, say I'd have you look like yourself as a graph, a bar graph. And inside of you, you're doing well as a parent. You're doing well as, in your finances, like on your job, you are performing at optimum capacity, right? And you're doing great, which is wonderful. But in some areas, you're not doing so well. In other areas, you're operating at a low capacity, right? And so, in these areas, that God wants to come in and bless us in those areas. But that's where it takes vulnerability, right? But before we get on to say how does vulnerability applies to those areas, let's take a look at when we're dealing with deficits, what happened. So say for example, you're doing well on your job, but there's certain areas. So say for example, your boss asks you to do something and you don't know how to do it, right? You don't know how to perform the task. But instead of saying I don't know how, we now pretend that we do know how to do it. And so we sit there in all this anxiety. We sit there feeling so anxious, so stressed out, because now we're pretending that we're here, knowing that our capacity is only here. And so that's what the ego does. The ego comes in and the ego wants to protect that place where we don't know. But instead instead of saying I don't know how, I pretend as I do. So the ego is protecting here. But what God wants to do, He wants to come in and say, you don't have to fake it until you make it. You don't have to fake it until you make it. This is what society wants us to do, to fake it, to act as if we're somebody that we're not. But when we're dealing with trauma, God wants us to come down and apply these principles, apply humility, apply being able to surrender, apply vulnerability, right? And He calls it blessed. So how do we move into that? How do we move? What are some of the steps that we can take to come back down to where we are, to be humble, to express ourselves, right? We can first learn how to be compassionate with ourselves. Sometimes it's so easy to express compassion to others. We know how to say we're sorry you went through that, you experienced that. We know how to go out of our way to help people. We know how to encourage others, but we don't know how to do it to ourselves. And so we have to now say, how do I now turn some of that attention in, and add some of that compassion to self? How do we be in touch with our emotions? How do we allow ourselves to feel and to be honest with where we are? How do we acknowledge that we're feeling hurt? How do we say we don't know how? And allow that place to be uncomfortable. Allowing ourselves to be uncomfortable, but knowing the promises of God, that He promises that He will never leave us and He will never forsake us. How can we comfort ourselves in that moment? It takes being vulnerable. It takes surrendering. It's so beautiful. It takes vulnerable. It takes being able to surrender. So Brené Brown describes vulnerability as feeling uncertain. We're taking a risk. It's an emotional exposure, exposing our deficits. She said it's also you feel unstable. You feel unstable. You're about to step out your comfort zone, doing something that you don't want to do. It makes us feel like we're losing control. But the beautiful thing about this is that we know God. And we know that in this area that we are feeling, inadequate. We know that in this place right here, that God meets us here. So when we loosen that control, we're opening up ourselves for something greater. We're opening up ourselves to increasing capacity. We're opening up ourselves to grow and mature in these areas that we're not operating at our best. If that is not exciting, I don't know what is. It's so exciting. So what are some of those steps? What are some of those steps to just express this, to be open and to be vulnerable and to surrender? It's first to just be humble. I had to be humble in many situations and ask for help. There is so many people who are around us, so many people who wants to help. But because of shame, we are afraid. We don't want to let anybody into that space. But asking for help and allowing ourselves to receive help is one way to help to build strength in those areas. Asking for help and allowing ourselves to receive help. Because truth to be told, many of us suffer in silence. We suffer in silence. We have all this anxiety. And the anxiety really comes from, I know I can do this. I just don't know how. I know I am capable. I just don't know how. I just don't know the right steps. But if we start to open up, start to release that control and open up so others can come in that space to help us. And seeking God, be humble before God, be vulnerable before God, and open up to God and share these things. Open up our heart, open up to our friends, share these things, be vulnerable. As I said, it's a messy but beautiful, beautiful experience once we start to build that capacity. And many of us, as I've shared in previous videos, I've gone to counseling several times, to get help to work through these things. So maybe therapy is something that we need to do, to be humble and recognize that we do need additional help, professional help in these areas. Because deep down we know what we're capable of. Deep down we know that we were made for joy. Deep down we know that we were made for more. We just need the right steps. We just need a little bit of help to get there. So, as I wrap up this message, it's a short and quick one, is to really practice gratitude. Be grateful that we're still here. We have survived, and there's still hope. There's still hope. There's still an opportunity to learn and to grow. There's still an opportunity to work on these areas and bring them up, to mature in these areas. Oh, it's so beautiful. So just practice gratitude. Gratitude for yourself, that you're willing to put in the work one day at a time, little by little, you will get there. And also, show gratitude to those who have helped you on the journey. I am a big supporter. I love showing gratitude because I know that I stand on the shoulders of so many people who have helped me to get where I am. Just having a peace of mind. So many people have helped me. But they couldn't have helped me if I didn't open my heart, if I didn't say, I need this. Can you help me with this? So in that space, and recognizing that we're not here on our own, but we are here because somebody helped us, and to show gratitude. So as I end this today, I just want to encourage you that our growth and maturity is going to take for us to be humble. It's going to take for us to be vulnerable. And we have to learn how to surrender those deficits for something greater. So I hope this message bless you. I hope that you will like and share this message to someone who will benefit from it. So until next time, I'll see you soon. Take care.